Peru. They are some of the driest and most desolate places on the earth. Hi, I'm Josh Bernstein, and I've come here to solve one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, the Nazca Lines of Peru.
For centuries, when people crossed these plains, they noticed lines in the sand. But they had no idea what they were seeing. Then, in the 1920s, came the first airplane flights. When pilots looked down from the skies, they were amazed. For the first time, they could see the lines were part of a massive complex of geometric figures called geoglyphs, covering the whole desert. Who made them, and why? The mystery of the Nazca Lines was born. The Nazca Plain is the Death Valley of South America, baking hot and almost totally without rainfall. Sandwiched between the Pacific Ocean and the Andes Mountains, it was home to an enigmatic culture. The ancient Nazca people who lived here between the 4th and 9th centuries left no great cities. They lived along the fertile river valleys crossing the desert. On the plains between the river valleys, they built their monumental designs. The Nazca Lines have become one of the world's most famous archaeological mysteries. I've come here to explore that mystery.
This is the modern-day town of Nazca, home to about 30,000 people. As you can see, it's changed a lot over the last 2,000 years. But one thing that hasn't changed is that people still come here to see the lines, which are just a few miles outside of town.
The town of Nazca is an interesting mix of open markets, agricultural businesses, and internet cafes. It's a fun town. But to begin my exploration, I decide to skip the stores and get a good look at the lines myself.
The best way to see the lines, really the only way, is from the air. And there's no shortage of conventional aircraft available for tours. But I'm looking for something a little bit more unconventional and exciting. Eduardo? Hi.
Eduardo Herrén probably knows the Nazca Lines better than anybody else alive. He's been flying over them for 26 years.
Is it safe?
Oh, yes, it's safe.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think I weigh more than this.
Oh, yes, but for the Nazca wings it's good. Huh?
It's probably the best way to see the lines.
Oh, yes, for the lines it's the best platform. It's a ULM, it's ultralight.
Okay, my life's in your hands.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Eduardo has discovered and mapped 324 lines and figures himself. He's passionate about them. He tells me he spent 12,000 hours in the air above the lines.
12,000 hours above the Nazca Lines?
Yes, in 26 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, complete.
I say let's go see him.
Go, friend.
All right.
Okay, muchachos, vamos.
This is really
And now
nice.
you discover the Nazca Lines, friend, huh?
Eduardo tells me he's had a few crashes in his ultralight, one of which nearly killed him. That's not exactly what I wanted to hear, but I'm not going to let it put me off.
You ever have a wing just fall off spontaneously?
If he's game, so am I. It feels like a very flimsy aircraft, which I guess it is. But we successfully take off and begin our ascent. As we gain altitude and I can finally see the Pampa or Nazca Desert, I relax and stare in wonder at what's appearing on the ground below. Some people believe the lines were built for extraterrestrials. Seeing them now, I understand why. Many of them do look like runways. And why would an ancient people make figures which can only be seen from the air?
I'm amazed at how spread out they are. And that they're really everywhere. Yeah.
Hundreds of lines crisscross the desert, some 10 miles long. A massive bird is the size of a football field. There's a monkey, a little harder to make out.
Right there. Yeah. The tail.
The spider is about 200 yards across. What looks like a whale swims across the desert, a plume of water erupting from its blowhole. On the side of a hill, I see a huge figure which looks human. Others are harder to identify. One in particular catches my eye. It looks like a flower. Eduardo tells me he has never seen it before. This is incredible. On my first flight over the lines, I've actually discovered a new Nazca figure. There are thousands of figures. In fact, Eduardo has found 324 himself. Even so, it's an amazing stroke of luck to find one on my first flight, and to have it captured on film.
I found one.
And I drove many times.
Yeah?
For this side, yes. It's the first time we see the flower.
The flower.
325 figures now, friends.
Yeah.
It's good.
My first time over the Nazca Lines, but I found one. Because I said to Eduardo, I was like, what's that? He's like, no way! You found one! Thank you. That was great.
Yeah. New figure for me.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You remember, I said, hey, what happened? You know, and you said me, hey, look there. I've never seen this figure. And today is the first time, and you have the first photo too. And I need this photo, please.
So this is a real discovery. We're not just kidding.
Yes, no, complete. I have 324 yesterday, but today we're at 25. It's incredible. I mean,
No, thank you.
really.
That was great.
You're welcome.
Even without my discovery of a geoglyph, the lines would have captured my imagination. What do they mean? Why are there so many of them? Time to set off across the desert and search for some answers. There is one name that always comes up in relation to the Nazca Lines: Maria Reike. This amazing German woman dedicated most of her long life to understanding the lines. For 60 years, until her death in 1998, she studied the Nazca Plains, walking over almost every part of them, often sleeping out at night, obsessed by the mystery of the lines. She was sure she had the answer. To find out about her theory, I'm going in search of Maria Reike's foremost disciple, Anna Maria Cogorno. Anna Maria worked with the famous German archaeologist in the last years of her life.
Anna Maria?
I'm hoping she can shed some light on Maria Reike's much-debated theory.
Great. I just flew over the
Yeah.
Nazca Lines, and I was waiting to get down here on the ground. Are these lines?
Yeah, come and see.
The first thing I notice is how hard
If
it
you
is
come
to see
here-
the lines from the ground.
They look so much bigger in the sky. Wait, this is a Nazca line?
Well,
looks so
this is
small.
the
From
edge
air,
of
they looked
it.
like they were.
Yeah,
So
they
much
look
bigger.
like, yeah, but this is only the edge of it.
So you're saying this is an edge?
These are edges, these ones.
So wait a minute, Anna Maria. These are the Nazca lines.
Yes.
Oh, okay, well, I got it. Okay, so now I'm looking at this thinking this is a Nazca line. Wait, scoot a little bit this way.
Right, but if you come to the middle,
This is the Nazca line.
yes.
Okay. That's
Straight.
huge. Now, see, this I could see from the
Right.
sky.
You can see straight ahead.
Yeah,
You know
this
how
big
it crosses.
path.
Right.
Okay. So how are these made?
Well, the only thing they had to do is just to push the pebbles and the stones to the side to make the designs, the patterns, you know, just moving the pebbles and the stones.
I always thought that they brought the rocks here and that they had to build these shapes, but they didn't. They sort of cleared the lines.
Very simple but very logical way how to do it, no?
So this whole field was covered with these dark rocks.
Absolutely. Because there was this huge flood millions of years ago. So the yellowish clay is underneath, and it was covered totally with volcanic stones containing iron and the little pebbles. They came through big floods, no?
So these are volcanic.
Yeah.
And then they used to lay on the surface over this lighter stuff.
You're right.
And then 2,000 years ago, they
Yep.
pushed them into these patterns.
The ancient Nazca must have had an advanced knowledge of survey techniques. With primitive transits and marker ropes, they could lay out complex designs across the desert. Then they just had to move the top layer of stone to reveal the pattern. It's a clever and simple way to transform the landscape. Archaeologists have calculated that a small group of people could have made one of the large figures in fewer than 48 hours. The other thing that amazes me is how the lines have lasted for so long. It turns out that there are two good reasons for that. The sand here has a high level of gypsum in it, which gets dampened every night by dew, gluing the stones to the ground. Also, the stones absorb so much heat in the day, they create a cushion of warm air above them, protecting them from the wind. As a result, any mark made on the desert stays for centuries. Car tracks made in the 1920s are still there today. So I understand how they made the lines. Now I want to know why they made them. Anna Maria tells me this is a good place to discuss Maria Reiche's theory.
Yeah.
Isn't it great?
Now I can see the trapezoid. So what does this mean?
Well, the purpose of all the lines, figures, were related to positions of the moon, the sun, the stars, solstice lines also.
So on the 21st of December, which is your summer solstice, my winter solstice,
Right,
This line points to the place on the horizon where the sun rises.
right. So, for example, the lines points out the horizons, and also the figures are the constellations.
It's a fascinating idea. Maria Reiche believed the ancient Nazca built the lines to be a huge star chart, a map of the skies. The figures were constellations. The lines, pointing to the rising and setting of stars, allowed them to mark the seasons. If it's true, it would make the people of Nazca some of the greatest astronomers of the ancient world. But it turns out the astronomy theory leaves a lot unexplained.
What Anna Maria said is really interesting. There's just one problem, and that astronomical alignment can only account for 30% of the Nazca lines.
And if you draw any line on the desert, it's going to stand about a 30% chance of pointing at something on the horizon. The constellation idea is just as random. If you look at the night sky, you can make out just about any shape or figure you want. All in all, the astronomy theory by itself does not seem to get us very far. I'm on the trail of one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, the famous Nazca Lines of Peru. I've already discovered a new Nazca figure myself, to the amazement of veteran pilot Eduardo Harang.
No way! You found one! Thank you. That was great.
I've also found out about the oldest theory of the lines,
Okay.
that they were a great astronomical observatory. But it turns out that theory is largely discredited. There's got to be another explanation. To get any further, I need to get closer to the Nazca people, who disappeared over 1,000 years ago. I've seen the lines they drew and the amazing environment they lived in, but I haven't got a sense of the people themselves. I'm told the place to do that is at the desert cemetery called Chauchilla. Deborah McLaughlin, who's come with me, is a Nazca specialist.
What are these?